morning's mini professional development institute, focusing on supportive and wraparound service for district residents who are primarily immigrant families and individuals who are underserved and uninsured in the District of Columbia. My name is Michelle Johnson. I'm the State Director for Adult and Family Education at the DC Office of the State Superintendent of Education. We want to take this opportunity to thank Stephanie and Eduardo for Not Thinking in Robbery to share information about the programs and services both of their organizations are offering to immigrant families in the District of Columbia. Also, providing support on today's webinar are Stacey Downing, Cynthia Brown, Tracy Richard, and Nakia Lynch, who are members of the Adult and Family Education team. Please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat, and/or there will be opportunities to unmute yourself and ask questions of the presenters as well. And additionally, we have posted the presentation. The presentation will be posted in the chat, and it will also be available on the OSSE Adult and Family Education website sometime after we complete the PD Institute. On the website are also videos and handouts from our August Mini Professional Development Institute, and we are so blessed and pleased to be able to add this phenomenal presentation from Briya Public Charter School and Catholic Charities to the suite of recordings and professional development materials from various partner agencies in the city. Dr. Heather Bruce, who's also a partner in hosting the institutes, is also on the line. Dr. Bruce, could you please bring your welcome comments as well?
Oh, good morning. I'm Dr. Heather Bruce. I am the Director of the Adult Education Program at the University of the District of Columbia. On behalf of the university, I want to welcome you. We are so excited about your participation today in this institute, right? And to hear about all the services you provide to those who may not always be eligible for other resources. So thank you for your participation.
Stephanie and Eduardo, please take it away.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of what we do at Briya to support families and community in Washington, D.C. I'm looking forward to presenting along with Eduardo today and also hearing from all of you. To start, I thought we would do a little icebreaker. If I can pull it up. So I'm going to ask that in the chat you type your name, your organization, agency, or school that you're affiliated with, and then 2 lessons that you are learning during the pandemic. I know we're all learning many lessons. So the first lesson is something maybe difficult or challenging that you have learned or are learning currently. And the second would be something more positive or hopeful. So I'll just give a few minutes and I'm going to stop sharing my screen while you type in the chat. So 1 challenging lesson and 1 positive or hopeful lesson. Now I can see the chat, so I can see what people are reading, if anything. Stacy, can you see the chat messages? Because for some reason I can't.
Yes, I can see them. I think people are. It's a big question. I think people are thinking about.
Oh, there's thinking happening. Okay.
I think so.
Okay, I'll be patient.
Do you see? I typed in. So
yeah, I got it.
Deidre Anderson has typed in. There we go.
It's also good to see where people are coming from. Washington English Center. Patience, gratitude, resilience.
And we see some thumbs up echoing and agreeing with things that have been posted.
Types of stuff too. Good to see youth build here.
Oh, she missed me.
Technology, yes. That is a huge challenge. For me too. Okay, I'm gonna, this is great. So keep adding your lessons, and I'm gonna share my screen again and keep going with the presentation. If it wants to be shared. Great. Okay. All right, so I hope everybody can see the slide. So our presentation, we're hoping that in this session, you will be able to reflect on the importance of collaborative partnerships, name examples of adult and family supports that have been helpful during the pandemic, and identify at least one strategy that you could possibly adapt for your own organization, school, or other setting.
Excuse me, Stephanie.
Yes.
Could you share? Is everyone seeing the screen? Or can you?
Oh, you can't see the screen?
No.
I see it. I see it in full slide mode, and I can still see Stephanie. If you can see both the slide and Stephanie, would you type a Y in the chat?
Okay, it's displaying now. Okay, great.
All right, is that better? Okay. All right, are we good?
Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, so those are our hopes for this session. I'm going to do a quick brief overview of Briya and then talk about our comprehensive support services for families, and then Eduardo is going to do his presentation after that. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Briya, we are a charter school in DC. We are a 2-generation program. So that means that we have adult learners, most of whom are taking our English classes. All of the adults in our English classes are parents of children 0 to 18 somewhere in the world. They could be in DC, they can be in other countries. They just have to be parents because the focus of our school is really on family and parent support, in addition to English and workforce development. And so we have an English program for adult learners. We also have a workforce, 2 workforce programs, one the CDA to become a childcare professional, and then the other is our medical assistant training to become a medical assistant. And then about 1/3 of our adult learners have children in our early childhood program, 0 to 5 dual language program. And then we have a lot of parent support, as I mentioned. all of our adult learners have child development classes on a weekly basis, and we provide a lot of hands-on support for parents to practice different skills they're learning in class, to work closely with their children's teachers and with their own teachers on really being more engaged in their children's development and more knowledgeable about all the areas of child development, and also to be engaged and knowledgeable about their children's schools and education system in Washington, D.C. and in this country in general. So this is just a description. I think I already went through this part. This is just a description of our 2-generation program versus our workforce program. And of course, I saw a lot of mentions of technology in the chat. We have always incorporated digital literacy or technology in our adult classes, but now that's become the way we do adult classes. So we've really had to amp up our technology support since all of our adult classes at this time are virtual. We do have an option of outdoor learning for our toddlers and pre-K students who come with parents on site a couple of days a week. That's probably about a third of our children are doing that, but all of our adult classes are virtual. This is an overview, a profile of the students that we serve. The vast majority of our students are from other countries and are here with us learning English. Unfortunately, the majority of our students and families are living in poverty and have had very limited formal education in their countries of origin. So for many of our students, this is their first time or their first time in a long time being in a formal academic setting, even virtually. So I'm going to focus mostly on our comprehensive services. So we employ a community school strategy. I was actually hired to coordinate that 7 years ago. We are one of the OSSI grantees to implement this community school model or strategy, which is a comprehensive approach to supporting children and families holistically through partnerships. And one of the key components of this strategy is to have an on-site coordinator who's part of the school's leadership team and who really takes ownership of ensuring that families' needs are being met so that those barriers to really engaging in their own education and in the education of their children are addressed. And that's what we try to do. We have a student services team with a student services coordinator at each of our 4 locations. And it's our student services team that really carries out that community schools work. Our primary partner in this work is Mary Center. Many of you are probably familiar with Mary Center. It is a federally qualified health center in the district and Maryland. In addition to being a charter school, Briya is also the education arm of Mary Center's social change model. So we are able to work really closely with Mary Center to ensure wraparound support is offered to our families. And we are actually physically co-located with them at 3 of our 4 locations. And this is just a visual of our community school strategy, which, as I mentioned, is carried out by our student services team. So we're constantly assessing community needs and interests at the top, and we incorporate student voice in that process. And we also use data, of course, to assess community needs and interests and assets, and develop community partnerships that reflect those needs and interests. And then we work with our community partners to bring programming and services on site to our school community, and also to have really strong partnerships so that we can connect students to even off-site. So, and then of course, we're always evaluating the impact of that work and continuously assessing, developing partnerships, bringing programs, and evaluating. It's a circle. So these show some of the examples of the types of partnerships we develop. in the areas of medical, mental health, legal, jobs and housing, civil rights, enrichment. We do a lot of support with school choice in DC. So those are just some examples of the types of partnerships. This is just to give a visual of the type of cases that our student services team addresses in partnership with students. This was last year's data, just to show you the type of needs that students come to us with. The basic material needs, the largest section of the pie chart, used to be about 3 or 4% usually. And obviously during the pandemic, the basic needs have increased tremendously, as you all know. So that's why over the course of last year, that increased to 21%. But we also still continue to provide support and connection to resources in all of these other areas that are reflected here. During the pandemic, these are the main areas that we have been focusing on. And we have found ways and continue to work on those ways of communicating through technology with our students so that they have the most up-to-date information on community resources in the areas of food, cash assistance, public benefits, making sure everyone knows their rights, and that we as a community keep up with all of the ever-changing information about eviction moratoriums and not having your utilities cut off if you don't pay your bills, and if there is rental assistance, how do you access that? We have to really keep up with all of that kind of information so that we can then have accurate information to share with the community. So one of the ways we share the information is through our student website that used to be really for mostly academic information, and now it's really a hub of information for resources as well. We also we send out a weekly announcement through text message to all of our students every Sunday night. And that text message has like a link to an announcement page on our student website. So we try to keep that up and share important information every week. We continue to provide emergency cash assistance as needed. We have done extra fundraising, which we had never really done before for that, and have been able to repurpose some of our funding to provide emergency cash assistance. And of course, a lot of emotional support for our staff and student body. We continue to provide that. We have on-site mental health support. And also our student services team and teachers do a lot of just day-to-day emotional support, and students for each other as well. We also have a student leadership group that focuses on advocacy. Before the pandemic, they were really focusing on making improvements to the Healthcare Alliance insurance program in DC, but they kind of paused that and they're revisiting it now. But during the pandemic, the early days, they worked with a collaborative group of organizations that were really fighting for cash assistance for immigrant families who were excluded, and other people who were really excluded from the stimulus check that the government was providing, and the unemployment benefits that many people were getting. So they successfully advocated by meeting with council members, and they did this social media campaign along with other organizations and community members, and succeeded at getting millions of dollars designated to distribute to families that were excluded from these other sources of income. And they continue to do that work. So our students are really involved with us and in partnership with us as leaders. This is something I just wanted to share with you because it's something that helps me to organize My thoughts around programming and services that is responsive to family needs. You may be familiar with MTSS for children in school. MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports, and it's a model that's applied in elementary, middle, and high school to make sure that students' needs are being met. So I like to frame it for adult learners to make sure that we are serving our entire community and responding to the needs of everyone in our community in an inclusive way. So this is just something I use to help me, and I wanted to share, maybe it would help you as well. So the tier 1 level is the bottom part of the triangle, and those are examples of programming and services that we provide for our entire school community. During the pandemic, we were able to provide, for example, cash assistance to everyone. That became a tier 1 level need where it wasn't before. And there are some other examples there that you can read on your own. And then tier 2 is types of supports that are for groups of people, maybe not for everyone. So examples of that would be, we have a partnership with an immigration law firm, and we provide immigrant rights workshops for those who are interested, and also free consults and legal services to some of our students who need that. We also, as I mentioned, have student leadership opportunities, including the advocates group, and wellness programming that we are now doing on a weekly basis, like yoga and Zumba and fitness and things like that. So those are tier 2 level programming and services. And then finally, tier 3 are services and programs that affect a smaller number of families and students. And those would be individual and group mental health services that we provide on site, and also really urgent basic needs, people who are in really dire straits, like who are at risk or experiencing homelessness, who are experiencing domestic violence, who are really in crisis, maybe have a loss in the family. We have had crises due to COVID-related losses. So that would be the tier 3. So this is a model to frame this wraparound comprehensive support for families. And before I conclude, I would just say a couple of things that I think have been the most important in terms of continuing that support during the pandemic. One is, I think, having extra amounts of communication and outreach, since we're distant, but we want to keep our sense of community. So just really going that extra mile to communicate with each other as staff, and also with adult students and children. That is really important during this time. Also, as I mentioned, really making sure we're keeping our own selves knowledgeable and keeping information up to date and communicated all of the resources, making sure students know their rights, and we have to keep up with that in order to communicate that, which is no small feat, I find. And then the other two things are cash assistance is key. Many people continue to be out of work or working very limited hours. And we really need to look out for every member of the district community. And so finding ways to support and to partner with others to provide cash assistance and mental health support, I would argue, is as important as cash assistance during this time, for obvious reasons that I'm sure you all don't need me to tell you. So that is my presentation. I would love to connect with you. This is here is information about Briya. We have all the social media, the website, and then that is my email address. I would be happy to connect with any one of you. And thank you so much again for this opportunity. I don't know, Stacy, if you wanted to do questions now or wait to the end. I know we had talked about both options. Thank you.
I think we can take 1 or 2 questions and still have plenty of time for the Catholic Charities presentation. Or if anyone would like to enter a question into the chat, then Stephanie can respond to it there as well. You're able to unmute yourselves. Can we see if there is 1 or maybe 2 questions? You covered it.
That's fine too.
So we'll take questions at the end then. Let's move on. If that's okay with you, Michelle, and with Eduardo, let's go ahead, Eduardo, and get started. And we will leave questions for sure at the end.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Eduardo Reyes. I am happy to be part of this event as a presenter and be able to collaborate with Aussie and now my good friend Stephanie Mintz from Briya to talk about our services and the approach that each of our organizations has when it comes to addressing the needs of our clients. In this regard, or specifically our adult learners. So I will be sharing my slides. I'm so sorry, give me 1 second. I missed this. Okay. Perfect. And I'm hoping everyone can see my slides.
We can see them. They look great.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here to talk about the Spanish Catholic Center, very commonly known as El Centro Católico amongst our population, the population we serve, being that a lot of them are Latino migrants, Spanish speakers. They refer to our center as El Centro Católico. It opened in 1967 as the local Latino population grew in Mount Pleasant. Over time, the center scaled up to offer a full range of health and social services to immigrants and refugees. So we've been doing this for a very long time. We happen to be one of the first organizations to be able to do this. And it's been amazing since then. The great stories I've been able to hear about all the services we've been able to provide, the partnerships we've been able to build, the impact we've been able to make in people's lives and in the community has been overwhelmingly positive. And I can attest to that because I was actually once a client. I seek medical care as an immigrant who was undocumented in this country. I needed the support. I was unaware of this until I started working for the agency and my mom disclosed that information. So then I started thinking about how life just works in weird and mysterious ways. And we always run into these circles that just need to be closed. And I'm destined, I felt motivated and destined to really be able to work with this team and provide all the support possible to make the services sustainable and continue to make an impact in the to additional families as the immigrant community continues to grow and shift. So back in when the organization started building up and scaling up, our team started focusing on ways we can our services as a hand up and not a handout. So we want to be able to empower the clients we serve by providing direct services and also involving them in the processes of how we develop our operations around them and being able to create ways for them to actually build the foundation that they need so they can become productive members of the society, be able to expand their chances of economic prosperity, and be able to address their individual needs. And these needs are so important to them that it can make or break them. And being able to address them and provide the adequate support is what we're here to do. And something we'd like to think about, and as you can probably see, I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure you can, to your right, you will see a picture of our team. Most of those team members are actually healthcare services members who've been at our center, continuing to serve our population. And this model that we follow in the organization is say yes. We like to say yes. We like to serve everyone if possible and be able to If we're not able to provide the direct services there, at least refer them to our partners who can. So our El Centro Católico, or the Spanish Catholic Center, it falls under the Catholic Charities umbrella. So it's Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Washington. And I want to shift our attention to the agency's mission. The Catholic Charities is a social ministry outreach of the Archdiocese of Washington. Motivated by the gospel message of Jesus Christ and guided by Catholic social and moral teaching, Catholic Charities strengthens the lives of all in need by giving help that empowers and hope that lasts. To this end, we affirm and support the dignity of all human life, strengthen families, and serve the poor and most vulnerable. So this information about our mission and our goals and very specific tactics that we put in place can be found on our website, which I'm sharing on this slide. And I want to bring your attention to the very last 3 words of our 3 to 4 words of our mission, which is poor and most vulnerable. So when we think about poverty and vulnerability, it is something that's broad. We all, in a sense, have some sense of poverty or experience some form of poverty or vulnerability. And our clients are no different. So Catholic Charities' approach is to really focus on addressing the consumer's vulnerability. We hope to do it in an individual capacity, which will then lead to family and then can very well lead to community impacts. Now, there are moments where we serve the entire family. There have been moments where we have served the community. As Stephanie very well mentioned, and I'm sure all of you are well aware of, the need for community resources has risen due to the pandemic. Need for accessibility to food, information about how to get access to adequate health care, people who've experienced a bunch of hurdles because of societal constructs, and just not being able to navigate these systems because they may be foreign to them, or it's taking them a while to really get used to. They've had struggled to expose themselves to adequately navigate. So our approach is to be able to address the individual needs that lead to family impacts and then community impacts. But again, if because of unprecedented circumstances, we have very well been able to address the needs of each individual level. So individual, family, and community. And as one of the largest social services providers in the nation, the agency has created programs to assist socially marginalized people. The Catholic Church is the second largest provider of social services across the globe after the government. So on a global scale, the agency or the institution itself has stepped up to be able to provide services for people who don't get access to these resources and services as easily as perhaps other people. And it could be due to a variety of reasons. Now, when you talk about the immigrant and refugee community in the Washington metropolitan area, there are specific factors that we'd like to, and when I say we, Catholic Charities likes to take into consideration when structuring our programs. So our consumers' poverty and vulnerability is unique and cannot be described in a solid way. And we like to look at vulnerability on a range. So there is variability. When we think about vulnerability, there is physical, there is mental, which I should have referred to as psychological, because it's not just the psyche, it's also the emotional well-being of the consumers we're helping. There's social vulnerability. There is vulnerability when it comes to education. Their educational attainment actually sets them back if it's not at a level that allows them to feel empowered and be able to navigate systems and just be able to live a life where you know where to go to get the resources you need to live a healthy life. Then we think about financial vulnerability. What you have in your pocket, what assets do you have? And then there is vulnerability that's historic. These cycles that are hard for our consumers to break out of because, well, it's been normalized. Their parents could have very well experienced the same sense of vulnerability. They know it's wrong, but they don't know how to break out of it. And it's not just their parents. It could have been 3 generations down. And then when we think about our consumers, where are they coming from? What vulnerability did they experience there in their native countries? Is this historic? Is this new to them? And then when we think about educational, it ties in something that is worth noting is there is vulnerability when it comes to technology, which is something that was brought to was mentioned in the chat by a lot of participants, that they're experiencing technology issues. Well, that is a sense of vulnerability, and it can set you back and make it challenging to receive services that you need. So when we look at Catholic Charities and consumers and our adult learners, our patients, we look at people and that step into our doors, and they're not unique. They all bring their own form of vulnerability and their own story. We have single parents, again, immigrants, minorities, refugees, displaced people. Now, they could be displaced locally or have been displaced in Latin America and felt forced to migrate to the US and find and build a new home. We have high school dropouts coming to our door, seeking help and trying to acquire services. We have teen parents, and then we have a specific group of indigenous Latinos, Latinas, who are very vulnerable in their native countries because they don't speak the primary language. They don't speak Spanish. They don't speak Portuguese, and have been so isolated, felt that they couldn't find the adequate resources in their native land, and felt forced to leave and seek a better life, not just for themselves in most cases, it's for their entire family. So we like to take all of this into consideration and be mindful of the variability. And as we were hit by COVID, this is something that we had to take into consideration when adapting technology resources. Which ones are easier to navigate? Perhaps it's easier for me to use Zoom, but for the student, it's easier to use Teams because there's less clicks in the process to be able to join a meeting. So again, thinking about these, the variability that comes in with vulnerability, we and our team is dedicated to being advocates and supporting our adult learners. So our adult learners have very specific social vulnerability. And as a social services agency, we have partnerships to help our students address them. And some of the vulnerability that has been reported, if not at least observed by our team, is that our students suffer political vulnerability. So if they're undocumented, they don't have the political safety net to be able to access resources. So we are here to help them in that regard, referring them to immigration legal services. That alone, that shift in immigration status can help address a lot of the hurdles that they are experiencing, increase their chances of accessing the adequate support that they need. Not that we don't want to help them, but it's an issue that doesn't just affect one life or family. It's continuous, and there's something as we start to branch out and continue to serve people, we want to be mindful of that. So then there's also economic. Now as an economics major, I look at economics and find finances in a very different capacity, and that's something that I like to promote because economics is a social construct. Economics was created to, and for a lot of people, it's seen as a way to help society progress. Rather, finance is just seen as a way to make development projects make people wealthy, create financial investments, but it's not really social investments. So when we think about our adult learners' economic vulnerability, we want to help them achieve that chances or increase their chances of economic prosperity in this country. And then we also look at cultural vulnerability. Our families come from very specific parts of the world where there is ethnic and racial vulnerability. And these are differences that can very well be observed. And the image on the right is actually, and I couldn't cite it, I found it 4 years ago when I started working for Catholic Charities, and it very beautifully illustrates the common path of a lot of our consumers. And at that point, I was working for the Healthcare Services Department or program, and this very well described our patient population. I shifted to the Workforce Development Program, and it still adequately describes the people we are serving. And it's just so impactful to see what our consumers had to experience in a way that can very well allow us to generate ideas and just grasp a better image of their journey. So at Catholic Charities, we like to provide comprehensive case management that's culturally competent. And we want to be able to address our consumers, our adult learners' needs. So again, we refer our students to immigration legal services so they can tackle that political vulnerability. Healthcare services could be for physical or emotional, psychological needs. A lot of our consumers do experience trauma. I can only imagine the story or what they had to go through to be able to reside in the Washington metropolitan area. And in such circumstances where they're also, for the most part, welcome to poverty. So being able to refer them to healthcare services to meet those needs is something we've very well developed. And we also have a housing program for those students who are eligible. We want to be able to make those connections to our housing program and get them connected and improve the quality of their families' life. Trafficking Victims Assistance Program, that is one of our programs, and it's actually in my same department where we work on identifying trafficking victims, survivors of this atrocious issue, being able to get them the adequate support so they're able to move on from that and really start hit the reset button so they're no longer victimized, and how to break out of that cycle is work that I've actually been able to witness since my start in the agency in 2016. And again, as highlighted, the food pantry, due to the pandemic, there is an increasing need for access to food. There's a lot of food insecurity. The number of people we serve has increased because of the pandemic, and I'm afraid that it will not change. If anything, it'll get worse until we reach herd immunity, or the point that the healthcare experts need us to reach, so that we are not risking additional lives. And it's very tricky, but again, this goes to just highlight how our food pantry has grown, and the demand for our services is overwhelmingly increasing, or the demand for our service in this regard is overwhelmingly increasing. But we also receive a lot of support from our partners, and then we have a clothing drive across our centers to be able to give kids and their parents coats and clothing adequate. And it's getting cold. Tomorrow we're expecting snow. We want to be able to make sure that every family has the right clothing to take care of themselves. So then we think about our development strategies at Catholic Charities. We are determined to building allyship across populations. I will use myself as an example. I, as a male, want to serve as an ally to women and use my privilege to be able to get them access to adequate and just the resources that they very well deserve, that should not be gender driven. I want to serve as an ally, and this is something that Catholic Charities has committed to. We also want to be able to promote allyship, not just across our team, but across the consumers and adult learners that we serve. We would like to instill reciprocity, being able to pay it forward, being able to promote continuity of engagement from our consumers. There are consumers who, and not because they don't want to, but they are unaware that the issue persists. That just because their needs have been met doesn't mean that the demand for such services disappears. No, it continues. So getting them to be involved in making recommendations in that capacity could very well just help us make significant improvements to the way we operate. So instilling that reciprocity is something we strive for as well, raising awareness. And again, not just across our team and our partners, but also our consumers. And strengthening internal and external partnerships. So collaborating with OSSI, now the Briya School, and everyone who's joined this call who I haven't connected with, being able to connect with you all and build the relationships so that we reach our goals and serve the families we have said yes to serving. And some recommendations that our management team and executive team at the agency has given to our board of directors is to observe a lot of trends. There are a lot of historic trends that take place, a lot of immigration trends, employment trends, so that we're able to forecast a lot of the challenges and improve the way we operate. So being mindful of such trends has helped us tremendously. It has helped us to branch out and be able to partner with OSSI. It has helped us to be able to expand our network, our healthcare network, which is a network of pro bono, or as I like to call it sometimes, low bono, specialty care providers who are committed to serving underserved patients. But being mindful of these trends has really played a significant part in us being able to make this work possible. And then Catholic Charities' operational success is divided into 6 portions, which I like to call our stakeholders. We have our partners, we have our staff. I'm part of the staff. Our mission is our backbone, what we're here to do, what we've committed to do. And it outlines ways that we can just, again, taking everything into consideration, the vulnerability, the poverty of our consumers. We rely on our donors and our volunteers. A lot of the operations at the agency and El Centro Católico, or Spanish Catholic Center, are volunteer driven. And it's amazing to be able to get the support from our people who are committed to making our mission possible. And our consumers, which I like to consider as the biggest stakeholder, make our operations a success. Getting them involved, again, getting their feedback, paying attention to what they're experiencing, helping them express what they're experiencing as well, so that we can make the best tweaks to our operations and make a huge impact in their lives. And beautifully enough, a lot of our consumers then go on to become staff. I am, again, a perfect example of that. I was a consumer, I didn't know, and I ended up becoming an employee of the agency. Before then, I was a volunteer, and I enjoyed my work here. And I was really called to continue doing this work and doing my part in paying it forward, so to speak. So we have had consumers actually become donors. So again, that is part of our operational success recipe. And at Catholic Charities, specifically speaking to our workforce development resources, we have our pre-apprenticeship green construction program. It's been offered since 2005. I think that date is wrong, actually. It could be longer than that. And we have been able to operate in a virtual capacity. And the picture to the left actually is of 2 former students who were able to find jobs in the sector. This was taken a couple years ago, or maybe more than a couple years ago, but it beautifully illustrates that we are open to serving people who, it's not gender driven, it's not religious driven either. Our mission is to serve whomever needs our help. And on the image to the right, you will see, to the far right actually, the wonderful young ladies who make this program possible. Our instructor Melida is wearing the black coat, and then our wonderful program supervisor Celia Sterling, who I believe is on the call, is wearing the white top. They are the ones who make this dream possible for a lot of our students, getting them connected to employers, providing adequate mentorship, and culturally competent guidance along the way. Another one of our programs that is offered, again, in a virtual capacity is a bank telling program. It's a beautiful partnership that we've been able to expand and now loop in Bank of America to provide employment opportunities to our graduates, be able to also provide adequate training before they're even interviewed for positions, and tailor their road to success in a way that will actually be a lot more impactful had we not been able to provide partner with Bank of America. And the current curriculum is also being modified to provide additional financial options because COVID has really shifted a lot of the demand for new employment opportunities, which is great. And there's always room for improvement. And we are lucky enough to have strong partners that allow us the flexibility that we need to make the best modifications for our adult learners. And then another one of our great partnerships is with the Washington English Center, which is we partnered to create English courses for Catholic Charities consumers, those who need the additional support before they reach a specific training like construction, or do it concurrently, culinary, bank telling. We want to be able to get them to that point, but at times it requires to start at the Washington English Center. And the Washington English Center is a great example of the efficacy of volunteer-driven initiatives, which I've learned from over the last 3 months since I've been in this position. That is a beautiful model. I've seen it in medicine, and now being able to see it in adult learning capacity is very beautiful and highlights again how important it is to be mindful of all the resources that we have. And we also partner with local radio stations. I serve occasionally as a host or co-host of our Radio America program to be able to connect to our adult learners and consumers that we serve at the agency. So that's a little bit about, very briefly, about Catholic Charities of Centro Católico Spanish Catholic Center. I know that can be confusing. Again, I'm Eduardo Reyes. I'm a program manager at the agency. This is our address. To the bottom left, you'll find it, and our phone number. And I look forward to connecting with any and all of you who are interested in building a partnership and making our work sustainable.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you.
And thank you, Stephanie, for sharing information about Briya Public Charter Schools and Catholic Charities. It has been indeed a very, very rich presentation, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to take a deeper dive into the programs and services that are currently being offered. We would really like for you, those of you who are on the call, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you might have to Stephanie and to Eduardo. I really appreciated the historical background that you provided, Eduardo, relative to some of the challenges that the immigrant population has faced. And I think it's also important to note that while you shared information about the Spanish Catholic Center, the Catholic Charities also has other types of programs that meet the diverse needs of district residents, and including Anchor Mental Health. Yes. You also have the Lieutenant Joseph B. Kennedy Institute that provides services to people with disabilities. You also have your the headquarters that's down at 9th and G Street. And I just wanted to make sure that you were able to, we invite individuals to go to the Catholic Charities website and to see its locations throughout the Washington metropolitan area and all of the services that they are providing, as well as logging onto Briya's Public Charter Schools and Mary Center's website to find out about services that are available not only in the District of Columbia, but in Maryland as well. So does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself, find your microphone at the top. I assume it's at the top of your screen. Stephanie, I wanted to ask you about the advocacy work. I wanted to make a notation about the importance of student advocacy. And when you stated that their efforts have raised millions of dollars, I'm not sure if everyone on the, I'm sure that we've seen different advocacy groups. Is it, do you have how many people serve on the student leadership committee?
Yeah, so we have a group that meets on a weekly basis with someone from our student services team facilitates that group. And on average, about 15 students participate.
Wonderful.
This is a group of our more advanced English students. And like I said, every week they meet and they're learning and practicing organizing and advocacy skills. Last year, before the pandemic, they were working with the DC Healthcare Alliance Coalition, a group of people in the community who were advocating for changes, positive changes to the Alliance program, which is health insurance for adults in DC who do not have Social Security numbers. And they actually went and testified before the DC Council. They had individual meetings with different council members and other decision makers. And now they're back on that advocacy campaign, but with a brief intermission for advocacy for cash assistance for excluded workers. So the DC Council had to approve cash assistance. It was a very tense but important fight. And it wasn't, our students were involved along with others. And that money is actually, there's another round of that funding that is going to be distributed to families in January. But it took a lot of advocacy, and our students are very well prepared and very interested in doing even more to improve the lives of district residents and families.
Wonderful.
It's a great group. They're an awesome group. And I'm sure Billy, who facilitates that group, would welcome visitors. He loves inviting other people to come and join and talk about their work and just sit in on those dynamic meetings with our students. So let me know.
Wonderful. Eduardo, Kennedy Institute at one time had an advocacy group. I don't know if it's still in existence, called Advocates in Action. Mm-hmm. And they too, this was similar, Stephanie, probably a group of about 20 adult learners with learning and other developmental disabilities who would meet once a month and identify ways to advocate for funding and resources for people with developmental disabilities, including, healthcare, housing, and things of that sort. I think sometimes it's important, that irrespective of their educational functioning levels, encouraging students to feel empowered to be the change and make the change that they want to see is so important, that in providing them with opportunities to have their voices heard can make all the difference in their quality of life. And so I applaud the work that both of you are doing, and I hope that more and more organizations are engaging district residents in the process of identifying ways to obtain additional supports and resources to meet their needs and those of their families. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Stacy, did we miss anything, or did we capture everything?
I think we've captured everything. I don't see any additional questions there.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, thank you again for joining us for this morning's presentation. We hope you join us this afternoon for our Mini PD Institute on DC Public Library. Please join me in thanking both Stephanie and Eduardo for being a blessing to us this morning. So have a wonderful remainder of your day, and we'll see everyone at 2 if you're able to join us. And Dr. Bruce?